They're showing up to practice. They're doing what they need to do. They might be technically proficient still, but when they get into those game situations, they're falling behind. They're making poor decisions, and it's like they maybe don't do that in practice. Like they just aren't able to actually process things as fast as they need to, or like track more than one thing.
Travis graduated from Wilfrid Laurier with a Bachelor of Kinesiology. With a specialization in athletic performance, Travis is now working as the neurosport performance coach, where he works directly with athletes from youth to professional sports to assess and train visual and cognitive skills using his expertise in sports science and data analysis.
The access to a different technology and tools, but really anything that can just provide just a stimulus that you have to react to, train reaction time, as long as you're being intentional with every one of those reactions.
What types of flags, red flags, are we looking out for to see if this might be related to some of the stuff you work with, see the game, and your athletes?
Our biggest success and biggest impact in, I guess, would probably be football and baseball.
Today on NeuroVision Edge, we welcome Travis, who's from See the Game. I'm going to link his credentials and his contact information down below. He helps players all the way from pro level to youth with helping them get to the next level, getting that edge they need to improve their game and their performance. And oftentimes this component where seeing the game is taken for granted. So Travis, when you think of your guys' brand name, your tagline, See the Game, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean with performance?
Yeah, for sure. And just want to say thank you for having me on. Excited to see where this goes. But yeah, so See the Game is essentially what we're trying to do is just help athletes see the game better. As simple as that kind of sounds. That's kind of what the name came out of. What we do is we kind of break that down into helping athletes see more on the field, court, ice, whatever their playing field is, process information faster, and then react not only quicker, but also smarter. So those are kind of all the components that we just kind of identify with vision beyond just the actual sight aspect of it. So that's where the kind of name See the Game comes from. And
it makes it super clear. Right. I mean, a lot of times when I talk to athletes, we get this thing where, well, I had my eye exam and then that's it, right? You got glasses, contacts, or you were told you're 20/20. That's it. That's as far as it goes. But there's ways to make that way better. There's ways to make that reaction time better, the ability to see something, process it, and make that motor coordination so much quicker, better, and more balanced. How do you convey that message to someone who is right now in high school or college and they're looking at trying to get to the next level? How would you explain to them, especially with your experience with a lot of pro level players, that all of those things, based with vision can be improved? How does that conversation usually go at your clinic?
I mean, usually what I try and do is honestly just break it down for what it looks like for them. So starting with essentially going beyond just that 20/20 vision things for sight, just probing them with some questions of just what do you do when you see kind of just a play going on the court if you're a basketball player. It's more than just taking in that detail. There's so many other levels of processing and things that you have to do to decide what to do, figure out what's happening, tracking players, things like that. So I think it's just breaking down what that looks like for them, and just explaining that to them in their terms, so they can understand that it's more than just the sight aspect of it. There's so much more. And it's also, it's not only for if there's a deficit. It's even from the sight aspect, there's more than just correction to 20/20. There's all the other kind of aspects. I'm not an optometrist, so that's beyond what I do. But when we kind of take a look at it, because we're focused on just the vision for enhancement of vision through training, we break it down to just exactly what we're going to do with the athlete and how that relates to them.
So there's two components, it sounds like. One component is you have a deficit, right? We have a vision problem, and how do we get that better? And then the other component is you're, let's say 20/20, but we want that to be even better. Or let's say you have a certain amount of peripheral awareness, a certain amount of reaction time, but we want that metric, we want that skill to be better. So it can all be enhanced.
Mhm.
Do you feel like the athletes that come into you already know that, oh, you can make all these things better? or do they come in because they were referred in, or they want to get things better, but they don't really understand the vision and the brain aspect of things?
Yeah, I think the majority of people that come to see us, oftentimes are people who just have like, seen our stuff on social media, talked to some of their friends who are training with us, or through some of the ads that we run, things like that. So a lot of times they're kind of coming into it like, this looks cool. I've maybe seen some things, or like, I saw you worked with such and such. That looks cool, but I have no idea what's kind of going on here. So
Yeah.
a lot of the kind of initial conversation is just like showing them that typically what we kind of do with the athletes is we start in that conversation of what it is. We show them where they're at, because I find at least it's really challenging to kind of just like talk to them about what it is, why they need it, and then get into that process. It's really easy to just like go through even just like a basic evaluation that doesn't take very long, to show them like, okay, this is where you're at, this is where you should be at. And then the other question I get in a lot of these things is, how long does it take? Like, is this like, do I come in for a certain amount of time and I'm okay? Like what's, and that's, I think, one of the, I guess, like misconceptions I would say that we try and kind of deal with right away is, because we're talking about like the enhancement, there's not necessarily like a timeline. We like to hit just kind of like, certain, like if we can in the off season. A lot of the research shows that between like 6 and 10 weeks is pretty typical for like the length of a training program to get results. So it's like if somebody's coming in the off season, if we can, I'm like, okay, let's try and get this time, but there's nothing to say that we cap out beyond that. So what our kind of model is just the continuous training. So there's not too much to even say that there is like a cap or a ceiling to what we can get to. So that enhancement will just keep going, and that's something that we talk about pretty early on, just kind of like once we start describing it. So just, yeah, breaking that kind of part down to it, yeah, helping them to just like understand that what, like, there might be deficits, and like obviously those need to be addressed, whether it is they need to go see their optometrist or one of our optometrists to get contact lenses, or like even if they need like vision therapy or something like that. Those are one thing, but the enhancement side of things is what our main focus is, and just getting them to understand that like regardless of kind of where they're at, we can get them better.
Quick segment break, but you're going to want to hear this. If you're an athlete, coach, or parent and you want faster reaction, this is where we start. This is called vector ball. This ball unpredictably bounces and it changes colors: red, green, or blue. We use this to sharpen the reaction time, focus, and coordination. And here's what makes it different. Whenever you see a different color, you can assign it to left, right, pass, shoot, adding a cognitive load, meaning that frontal lobe, while you're moving around, is making faster decisions. We use this with athletes every week, and we hardwire this decision making. Train your brain, train your eyes, dominate your game. Grab the vector ball in the link in the bio or scan this QR code to get started. Let's get back to it.
And that's, I think, the main misconception, which is not really talked about, is it can get better, right?
Yeah.
That most people think vision is just vision, and that's it, and you're just born with it, or you're not born with it, or you have glasses, or you have contacts. But they don't understand you can actually make that whole process from the brain and the eye connection better, faster, stronger. And there's no, like you said, there's no ceiling to it. So you do a lot of sports, right? And I've seen some of your stuff on social media. I've seen a lot of basketball. What, like, if we had to talk about the sport that you notice the quickest improvements when it comes to the neurovisual, the cognitive training stuff, the stuff you're using with the neuroscience, where do you see the quickest and the biggest benefits with which sport?
I would say like the two sports that we've probably had some of like our biggest like success and biggest impact in, I guess, would probably be football and baseball. We do work with a lot of basketball players, and I think just based on the nature of just the opportunities that we've had, it's been a lot of kind of team and group training. So you're just getting less time with those athletes. So that's kind of one part to it. So the opportunities that we've been with football and baseball, we've been able to work like a lot closer and way more in depth with. But yeah, I think they're two really interesting sports. Obviously, baseball, I would say, in sports vision is kind of the the typical, if you can say that, sport where this stuff all just kind of evolved from baseball, just because it's just like the purest form of reacting to something as quickly and accurately as possible. So that's kind of one of the more like classic sports to kind of work in, but we've had some good success with the people that we've worked with there, and especially football too, just with like how dynamic that sport is in terms of just like especially like position to position. So I did my master's of science in kinesiology. That study, we worked with some of the football players at the school that I went to, and it was really cool because like I had defensive linemen who are like just massive, just athletic freaks, and then some like receivers, some quarterbacks, and like even done some stuff with like some of the offense, and it was just like really cool to see just like how in each of those you can still make really good impact, with your defensive linemen, making them just be able to react so much quicker than the others is just like so key for their position. But then, coming at it from a receiver or running back perspective, it's like being able to like catch the ball or see a gap. It's really cool just how like varied the visual demands, let alone varied the physical demands are in that sport. So that's one that I enjoy a lot, is working with the football players, and we've had a lot of good impact there.
Since we're in NFL season right now and we're starting, let's talk about like best drill. And I know you mentioned that obviously the way you work with the linemen is going to be different than the way you work with the running back in that situation. But if you had one drill that is good for most football players, what would you say your best vision brain drill for a footballer?
Yeah. I think if we're looking at like the visual skill that probably has the most impact on those athletes. So there's a couple studies done with I forget the research group. I think it was with AIQ was maybe the assessment. Anyways, there was a few research papers done where so there's a few research studies done using that tool where they took the athletes through at the NFL Combine, just like their kind of visual and cognitive assessment, and essentially just measured basically like how they performed in that assessment, and then measured basically their entire career statistics. And what they found, it was fairly like good results. They did one study looked at just like all the kind of different positions, and then one specific one with quarterbacks. And the one that came out as having the most impact with basically all the positions was reaction time. If you perform better in the reaction time test at the combine, it predicted for like offensive linemen false starts per game. So if you had better reaction time, you had less false starts per game across your career. With quarterbacks, it was QBR, passing and rushing yards, like pretty like key statistics. Keeping that in mind of just like that's probably, in terms of at least like the research, one of the most important things you can do is just be able to react faster than the other people that you're playing against. So the biggest thing I would want to at least do, if there's one thing I could work on with a football player, it'd be reaction time, and that would just be across the board regardless of position.
So reaction time is the biggest skill that we need for an American footballer. So what would you recommend in terms of best drill? Let's say they don't have access to you and they have difficulty getting to you or lack of funds. How would you recommend at a base level? This can be youth to high school to college. how would you recommend they work on reaction time to have a faster speed of getting that vision to process to the brain to go into a motor reaction?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We obviously use, because we have the access to it, some of the different technology and tools, but really anything that can just provide just a stimulus that you have to react to will train reaction time, as long as you're being intentional with every one of those reactions. So, things like a tennis ball, or even just like kind of like in your sport, incorporating some things where it's just like you do have to quickly react to um, one stimulus versus the other. I think in the assessment that they did, it was more of like a choice reaction. So it was like, respond to this shape, don't respond to the other shapes, kind of thing. So closer to a go no go, like that kind of stuff. So anything where it's like you can provide a stimulus that they have to react to, but not provide that stimulus every time, just to allow some of that processing. So yeah, different like tennis ball drills.
And I want to break it down, just simplify it, make it make more sense for someone who may not have the background we do. So you said we want a choice type of drill, and you mentioned go, no go. So what you're mentioning is that drill, however you set it up, and maybe we'll come up with one and we can film one after and we can post it. That way, someone who's listening to this, like, well, what drill can I do for this reaction? And we can do one together and post it so the viewers can do it at home. But a choice drill and a no-go, a go, no-go, the whole concept is, right, the brain has to make a decision, right? So there's some cognitive portion to it where now not only do you just see something and react to it, but you have to see something, you have to think about what you want to do, make a motion or not make a motion. And so that takes time. So it's not just see a red light, which is where I think some of these apps that are like, oh, improve your reaction time. When it's green, you just tap it. When it's red, maybe you don't tap it. Like some of those drills have some go, no go, because you tap green, you don't tap red. But how would you differentiate that versus, like, let's say a tennis ball drill where you're actually having to make a motion and be dynamic?
Yeah, so with some of those like computerized ones, I mean, first kind of thing with it, like go no go or like discriminate reaction time. What you kind of need for that to actually like get into the type of decision making for go no go is it has to be super fast paced. There's like a threshold for how long the stimulus can be presented, how many appear compared to like the no go. So that's kind of all stuff that's important with an actual like go no go task. Is the idea is it has to force choice decision making. So if it's slower, if it's maybe like 50-50 or like more predictable, then it's not even going to really work on what you want it to work on. So that's kind of the first thing. And then when you get into using, like a tennis ball or like doing any like drill like that, the eye hand. So a lot of times what we do for like measuring reaction time or measuring or training reaction time and things like that, we do it in the form of like an eye hand visual motor response. So actually coordinating a hand movement to respond to that, because that's obviously going to be more applicable to most athletes compared to just like just tapping a screen or something like that. That's still, that's just the more like simple reaction time of just the actual process of that reaction versus kind of the combined hand-eye coordination part of it with the reaction. So a tennis ball drill allows you to just kind of get a little bit more of that coordination when you're training the reaction time, and that's going to have a lot more transfer than just specifically a computerized reaction time test.
So let's say, and I'm just spitballing here in my head right now. So let's say we have a footballer and we have 4 tennis balls on the ground, and we have a coach or a trainer yell out a number, and each of the tennis balls has a number, and they either yell out a number, which would be more auditory, or they can have something on paper or an iPad where they have different numbers, and they swipe or play a video where it has a number pop up, and then based on that number they have to go pick up the tennis ball as quickly as they can, and then there's a timer that the coach is running. Would that be a good choice reaction like type of training?
Yeah, so like, we'll do like, tennis ball drops at like Pierre Gasly with F1 kind of made that drill pretty famous of just like holding two tennis balls, dropping them. And that was kind of like his cognitive warm up that he does before races. So that's another thing that we'll do to train reaction time. Different, like, having like numbers or colors that you kind of have to decide between, whether it's a verbal call out or seeing the stimulus through something else. Like using Switched On. I know you had owner and like founder of Switched On, so we use that tool a lot. That's obviously more tech, but that's another way that you can kind of provide that stimulus. But just anything that forces them to not just like have a predictable response is gonna have a little bit more impact, I would say. So that would be a good one.
I think there's so many athletes that are looking to improve reaction time in every sport, right? I mean, now we're seeing a lot of like neuropriming, reaction time, warm-ups, where they're trying to get that central nervous system engaged, get the eye, the brain, the whole body engaged before like a big game, before like a match. And so we're going to see, I think, a lot more of these drills being done because the studies have confirmed that the activating the central nervous system is so key. And so if we can train it where now all those things are better, and then you do these drills priming it, I mean, I just feel like performance is going to be, I mean, there might not be a ceiling here, but if you're not doing it, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that we use a lot in our training. First of all, just kind of like pre-session, we do something that's always geared at just kind of like priming things. So doing like, different like eye movements, different reaction time drills, different cognitive drills, just because all of those things have an impact on focus, attention, just staying kind of like activated. And we get our athletes to do that before their games and things like that, just because there is a huge impact. Like I was just reading a study this week from 2024. Matsutake et al. 2024 was the study. So if anybody wants to look that up, but basically it was saying that like with soccer players, they measured their kind of like decision making abilities and found that doing like a cognitive training drill for just like a couple minutes before a game was actually found to, they measured cognitive performance on just like a Stroop task, and then their like skill performance, and then had different athletes who were sleep deprived and athletes who were just like well rested going into it. And they found that doing a cognitive task, same like kind of like Stroop task before they went to play, improved their actual like skill performance when they played. They did just like a little like skill testing kind of thing, and improve their cognitive performance on the Stroop task that they would assess right before. And it also mitigated the effects of the sleep deprivation from the athletes who were sleep deprived. All that to say, that took me a couple tries to get the right citation. But all that to say, it's super important to just get that, neural priming, get those cognitive reaction time visual drills before a game, so that you're just like well primed, well activated, and ready to go, not just physically.
Let's go back to that study, because I'm actually curious about it. I haven't heard about it in detail yet. So we're talking, I'm guessing pickleball or tennis players, because I'm super curious. I've doing my own research on this neural priming stuff, and I mean, there's many applications for this. I think there might be applications also for non-dynamic sports, like even bodybuilding, because the central nervous system is responsible for a lot of this movement that we talk about, right? If we want stronger movements. We want more efficient movements. Well, the central nervous system needs to be engaged for that.
Yeah.
I was reading something the other day where they had athletes who were trying to get like a higher vertical jump. This was done mostly on basketball players. And they noticed that when they did the neural priming, which was simple, it was just some eye movement exercises, activating the central nervous system, eye, brain, the whole gamut, that they improved their vertical jump at that same moment, not like another
Right.
day,
Yeah.
by 2 to 5%. Right
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, insane, right? I'll have to look up that study again too, because that's super
Yeah.
interesting. Those vertical jump, and that's just activating the central nervous system. I mean, you're not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's definitely applications. 2 to 5% may not sound like a lot, but we're talking millimeters and milliseconds when
Yeah.
it comes to combines, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Diaz Garcia and colleagues in 2025 was the study. So
Brand new.
yeah, so it's brand new. So I literally was just reading it this week, and it was really cool. So yeah, they did one. It's kind of like a two-part study. So they did one with athletes, and then also one in older adults. I didn't look at the older adults one yet, so I don't actually know what that one is saying. But they looked at the effects. So it was a combined warm-up. So they had athletes who were coming in well rested and then sleep deprived, measured their cognitive performance on a Stroop task. So that's like, where you see the colors, or like word colors with different colored text. They have to say what the color of the text is. And that's just like a pretty classic cognitive task in research, and used a lot of times in the lab that I was working at. They'll sometimes use a Stroop task as a mental fatiguing task, where they just get them to do that for a long period of time, which doing something like that for a long period of time in general would be fatiguing, but then it's already a pretty challenging thing to do. So they measured them on like that Stroop task for performance. And then once they did a couple different variations of the warm up, where it was just kind of like your typical warm ups, where you do some light jogging, some kind of quick agility movements that are like more specific to paddle, and then some like stretching and things like that. And then they did a couple variations of the combined warm up, where they added the Stroop task into the warm up before.
I'm going to have to send this study to Franco from Vision Sticks. We just did a podcast.
Okay. Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's cool.
He has they're basically working on eye movements, saccadic eye movement.
Yeah.
He has these sticks where it has the Stroop tests on there.
Yeah.
And it has a different color background, different color font,
Yeah.
and it has the name of the color, and you're moving your eyes to each one, and you're still using the cognitive Stroop task while you're doing it. So he's going to love this study, because this is right down his alley, and very useful for his product.
So we use the Stroop task a ton for just similar thing of just like either just making a task more complicated, that they just have to do pretty complicated central task, or use it as essentially just like a fatiguing drill to work on some like brain endurance related things. But yeah, so they would do like that warm up, or the warm up plus 2.5 minutes, 4 minutes, or 7 minutes of the Stroop task. And so based on what I kind of saw, the short and the medium, so kind of 2 to 4 minutes, was the right kind of just like stimulus time for enhancing their performance, and then mitigating the effects of the sleep deprivation when kind of added into like their normal warm-ups.
That's huge. So based on the study, roughly, doing a 2 to 4 minute neural priming workout is going to enhance their performance and maybe mitigate any sleep deprivation or any fatigue issues with the cognition.
Their main conclusion from it was like the mitigation, but it also just like improved their performance in paddle and the Stroop when they were rested or fatigued. So
even if they were key. Not fatigued, even if they were well rested, it still improved their performance.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. And I don't know to what kind of like rate, whether it was like just compared to what their performance was before, or if it kind of got them to, I'd have to take a look at more than that, but it's,
I
yeah,
mean, it
that's
totally
huge.
makes sense for us, right? I mean, we see this day in, day
Yeah.
out with athletes, right? You prime them, they automatically do better. It's
Yeah.
just
Oh, yeah. And it's like even just like I mean, I know there's a lot from just kind of like the sports psychology aspect of it, of just like the competitive priming is another huge thing. It's like they do like I'll do this a lot with, especially with when I was working with the pro guys. A few of them they were connected and they kind of knew each other. Some of them played on the same team or they trained together. So I'd be working with one of them. They do, a reaction time drill and they'd get a certain score, and I'd be hyping them up, and then I'd be like, oh, the next time I'd see one of the other athletes, I was like, oh, this guy got this on it, and then all of a sudden he beats it by like 5 or something like that, which to the level they're at, like they're getting like their reaction time is really quick. So to like get like another like few kind of like hits on our reaction time test is crazy. So just that competitive priming is huge too. But yeah, the fact that you can do just like a quick 2 to 4 minute cognitive task, and it doesn't even have to be a Stroop task. It can be something else. We use other variations of it. It's huge.
right.
Those like the athletes that do that are the ones that just like they keep performing better, and that's why we're huge proponents of training all year round. Like we set up the sessions and kind of like periodize it a little bit differently based on like out of season versus in season. But the guys who are the people who are training in season, it's like you're basically just getting an hour's worth of priming, and then you go into your game, and those effects last. Like there was a study with like strobe glasses training. That one I forget the name of it, but it was like the effects on visual processing
Yeah.
for doing just like some strobe drills had like immediate impact, and it like slowly kind of degraded, but up to like 10 hours, 10 days, it still had an effect like short term. So the people who are training once a week, once every other week, like doing something, we like to do a lot of like kind of like pre playoff or pre tournament sessions, just to like do all the things that we know boost that visual processing and priming and things like that, and they perform really well.
Yeah, it's amazing what just a few minutes can do to
Yeah.
get your brain activated and ready, right? And you brought up like a really good point earlier where you said like you would have athletes start competing against each
Yeah.
other and then suddenly they're destroying their personal best, right?
Yeah.
Like why do you think they were capping out, right? That's
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
here, right?
Oh yeah.
Your brain your brain literally puts a ceiling on you,
Yeah.
right? And you got to figure out how to break that ceiling and get above it. And a lot of people talk about the mental aspect of it, and mental brain. I mean, I think they're kind of the same thing. We're just talking
Yeah.
about it in a different way. But to break that ceiling, like you said, add some competition in there, get the ego involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
break
Exactly.
break the
Yeah. It's
ceiling and
it's
the
crazy
barrier,
how much it'll
right?
do. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to Dr. Velasquez, Dr. Roman Velasquez.
Yeah.
He's in that neuroscience, more MMA and boxing,
Yeah.
and he had a really good phrase. He said that when it comes to a fight, it's the brain that gives up first, not the body. It's the brain that gives up first.
Yeah.
And that concept makes sense here too, that whenever we hit these ceilings, these barriers, it's maybe not the fact of like you not able to do the task with your body. It's your brain not letting you get to that. So you got to figure out how to either prime your brain for better or figure out how to add some competition, motivation, and show the brain, no, I can do better.
Yeah. Yeah. It is cool when you can see them kind of just like unlock that next level. And yeah, it's like I find if you're doing just kind of like a one-off thing, that's like if it's like really like short term, they can like push for that one. But when we start increasing the length, we start going for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, that's kind of when you start to see on these reaction time things, we do like minimum like 30 seconds, just because it's like if you did 10 seconds, the margin, like you can just kind of push for 10 seconds, but if we do 30 seconds, being able to push for 30 seconds is a long time. And like especially for a sport like where it's a lot more just like open and dynamic, that's huge, being able to just like keep pushing. And that's where we find like adding the competitiveness to it or things like that, or different just like cues essentially to just help them kind of push more. That's where you can see it really unlock, because they'll start to slow down a little bit unless they're getting somebody just yelling at them to speed up, like that kind of stuff. So having that competitiveness and having their teammates in watching them do it or going like head to head with them is huge.
I'm super curious. I'm sure somebody will study it one day, but curious to have 10 different types of primings, right? And get data to see what type of priming ends up getting the best result for a specific activity.
Yeah.
That's super cool data to have.
Yeah.
Maybe AI can help us with that one day.
Yeah, no, that would be pretty interesting. But I think the practical side of it, at least now, is just like it's so easy to add it into your warm-ups, and it's like it's becoming a lot more commonplace too, with warm-ups of just like it's not actually just like warming the muscles up, which was the more what most people kind of just like think that it is. But it's like you watch the pros doing their warm-ups, they're doing quick explosive movements, different jumps and like that kind of stuff, which just gets everything activated. So doing the same thing of like doing different eye movements, doing different reaction time, just like incorporating like a broad spectrum of these, because we don't have the data of what's the most effective, will cover your bases.
And I think a lot of that is everyone wants data that's works for everyone, and unfortunately we're all humans with specific visual demands, specific visual functions or dysfunctions. So I'm sure at the end of the day, it's going to be you have to find your perfect neural priming drill for yourself and for the activity that you're going to do. Unfortunately, there's not going to be data that be like, oh, that is the one drill for everything. As much as I want that to be the case to help more people, at least you can start working. Like if you're a youth, high school, college level player, and you are looking for like a really good neural priming drill to help with your specific motion, you could find someone like myself or Travis or other neuroscience and visual cognitive motor specialists who can figure out with testing and training to see what do you actually perform the best with, and then you can use that as your warm-up for now until we find something better. So let's talk on a different aspect of, instead of like, let's say the brain or the vision capping athletes, let's go in the mode of a parent. Like if you're a coach or a parent and you see an athlete and they are working really hard, but they're not getting the results, what types of flags, red flags, are we looking out for to see if this might be related to some of the stuff you work with See the Game and your athletes with the vision and the brain connection issues?
I think there is just kind of like the broad, I guess, answer to it that you kind of already alluding to, of just like, they're showing up to practice, they're doing what they need to do. They're, they might be technically proficient still, but when they get into those game situations, they're falling behind, they're making poor decisions. And it's like, they maybe don't do that in practice. Those kinds of things, like there could be the kind of like psychology aspect of it. There's that, but it could just be like they just aren't able to actually process things as fast as they need to, or like track more than one thing at a time, being able to shift their attention, or just like being so tunneled in, like all that kind of stuff could be going on if they're just like, they're one of those people that just like they can't perform on game day, even though they have the skills to be able to. And I think even just like things that kind of happen that are sometimes like unexplained, of just like, we've been struggling in this for like a little bit, like whatever it is, like if they're baseball players, like all of a sudden it's like once they moved up to the next level, they're just like their hitting has just not been good. There's a whole like kind of just like anything that's kind of just like unexplainable in terms of just like their skill proficiency and their work ethic is definitely a flag of just like, okay, get them in. If they first off, if they haven't seen an optometrist, go see an optometrist, because like it may be a thing of just like getting some contact lenses or sport glasses so that they can just see better and maybe have some better depth perception and things like that. That's kind of probably the initial baseline. And then from there, getting into actually see like, okay, let's take a look at your different visual skills and abilities when you look at the perception and the processing part of it. Are you able to like, some kids are able to react really quickly, but then as soon as you add one of those choice decisions or a go no go, you'll see them just like crumble. And I see that, we do these combines where we're just like running just like a ton of athletes through. So you get, quick snippets of an athlete. And even with that, it's like, they might be really quick in that reaction time test, but then it's like we do something where they have to make a decision between two different things or like filter between a bunch of different stimulus. Then it's like all of a sudden they're just like they're making wrong decisions, they're getting flustered, like all that kind of stuff. So sometimes that's the case. So then it's like we can see that and we can make those observations. We can see it in the data and we can be like, okay, we might need to work on just being able to cope with a bunch of different things going on and still be able to just, make correct decisions, stay calm and collected. And just like that kind of whole like cope with the visual demands is something that I've started to use the kind of like terminology with parents. Just because if they're not maybe like as familiar with this kind of area or still maybe on the fence, our like whole goal as like my goal as a neurosport coach is to overall just help them cope with the demands of their sport. I'm looking at it from the visual perspective. So it's like, I want them to be able to track, multiple moving players while they're moving and making quick, agility movements, being able to react quickly, all like so many things going on. My like bare minimum goal is just to help them cope with that so that they can succeed and they can, live up to their potential in terms of their proficiency and their, their athletic development, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think you summarized that really well. They're obviously, if they're putting in the work and the results aren't showing, I guess that is a red flag.
Yeah.
Something's wrong as a coach or a parent. Now let's figure out what is wrong. Start with that eye exam, but then don't stop there because that is only a certain, actually, let's talk about that. What's the difference between, let's say, a normal eye exam and then some of the comprehensive evaluations you do where you're testing the decision making, the reaction time, and all of that stuff? How would you explain to a parent coach what the difference is and where we need one or the other or both?
Yeah. So this is a good delineation, I guess, to make between them, because like, so my background's kinesiology. I have a master of science, but I'm not an optometrist, so I can't do an eye exam with an athlete, and that's not really what we do. We have optometrists that we work alongside with, and if they don't have an optometrist that they already go to, then they see our optometrist, because we obviously know the importance of getting an eye exam and things like that. But when it comes to kind of what we do, we're doing different assessments to essentially just see like in different scenarios when we manipulate their visual environment, how do they behave essentially and how can they perform. So we'll use a lot of different forms of assessments. So there's kind of some of the key companies that will have their kind of like assessments that we run through. We do honestly a bunch of them because they all kind of focus on some different things. Some things we like better on a different assessment. So we'll kind of it's usually between 20 and 30 different visual skills across the kind of full protocol that we do with our athletes of just like.
I like the way you put it. Yeah. It's the eye exam is the foundation, right? It's the base.
Yeah.
That base is messed up. If you can't even see things that are
Yeah.
big, and you need help with that. Or if both eyes are not coordinating together, then obviously that's a big problem. If one eye is slightly out or is not coordinating well with the other eye, or you have a huge eye dominance issue,
Yeah.
then obviously that foundation is going to be messed up, and everything you do on top is just not going to yield the results that you want. So you need the foundation. So everyone should be having a base level eye exam, but I feel like every athlete should have a like your combine level assessment where they're testing these 30 skills,
Yeah.
and they're should at least see, where are they at. And so you guys do a lot of assessments, right?
Yeah. So when we do those combines, usually it's a pretty condensed form of it, just because if we do that full assessment, it takes like an hour and a half or 2 hours because we're just getting really in depth with it. So
Okay.
with the combines, we'll pick just kind of a couple key metrics. So
For
obviously
that.
reaction time is yeah, and then they at least a lot of it is it's an easy measure in terms of just like being able to explain to the athlete what they need to do. It's pretty it's pretty intuitive in terms of what they need to do. Just react to this as quickly as possible. Whereas some of the other ones require a bit more explanation, so it's just more time. So we'll condense that a lot. But in terms of like the coaches and the trainers who are and the athletes who are looking at the data, it's also just an easy one to understand because it's like it's time. It makes sense. You can be like, okay, if my time was longer than somebody else's, that means I took longer to react to it. I need to be quicker with that. Versus like some of the other assessments, it's like it requires the interpretation from the coach or the like from somebody like myself or you to just be able to like explain what that actually means. But yeah, when we're doing, especially with the individual training where we're creating just like a program specifically designed for that athlete, that's where the assessments are key and that's where we get the most impact.
I know we're running short on time, but one last question. If you had to pick, one biggest missed opportunity when it comes to enhancing the sport performance, what would you say it is? And not per se like doing all the training, but let's
Yeah.
say, like one single missed opportunity, what should you be looking at?
Yeah. I mean, I think so with some of the team. So just in terms of just like the general incorporating the training, I think that's just like a huge missed opportunity. And I've heard of teams that will kind of just like half go into it. They'll maybe get some of the technology or it's, somebody will work with them and use like some of the, the same tools that I would use. And then not get much impact out of it and then just like not really use it. And they're just like, no, this doesn't do anything. I think that's probably one of just like the biggest missed opportunities is for the people who might actually kind of like know some of the stuff to be doing, but not have necessarily like the education or the practical knowledge and experience to be able to know, okay, like how do I like actually implement this? Because it's not as simple as just like doing this drill will get you better. It's like there's the whole field of actually being able to program that, know what kind of outcomes you're looking for, not just like getting them to do the drill and maybe add some sport specific things to it. Like you're like what I'm trying to do as a coach is I'm like, okay, what do they need to work on when we look at those visual demands, when we look at their assessment, what kind of outcomes am I looking for? How do I want to do that based on the time that we have? And then change that in season, out season. It's so much more complicated in the actual development and the training part of it that I think it's a huge missed opportunity when they just like they stop at just like with the technology or anything like that when you can get the impact if you have the right people in place.
Yeah, I don't see that a lot here because no one's doing it, no one's talking about it.
Right.
But I do see that on social media. I've heard about it with other providers, other people. And it reminds me of a quote my wife says sometimes.
Okay.
This is related to a different context. It was related to a context of someone having an eye injury and a different specialist was trying to treat it without referring it out. She says this often, and I love it. It's, they know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to be effective.
Right. That's good. That's good. I have not heard that before, but
You
that's
see it
good.
on social media and be like, well, I can just wear those glasses and just do the same thing. But it's like, no, there's a reason there's specialists for this, right? There's a reason there's a sequence protocol for certain things, because the brain and the eyes work in a certain way. And every single person has a different way that their brain and eyes work. And so you have to cater it sometimes to be more personalized. But I like, yeah, I like that. That is definitely a big missed opportunity, is getting it done correctly and then
Yeah.
not wanting to do it in the future because you think it doesn't work, right? Because now that athlete
Yeah.
feels like, well, I did that and it did nothing. Well, to know you never did it right.
Yeah. 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 So I mean, that's our whole goal with this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, is just to is to be that, person who can give them the correct implementation of that. And then also just advocate for that. I think it's cool what you're doing with this podcast, to just educate people on that and what other people are doing with education on this kind of stuff, because it's a new field that's just starting to really gain some traction, and especially, I mean, we're in Canada, so we're a little bit behind the times, just from the US, based on funding and population and things like that.
Yeah. I feel like you guys are not behind, because there are parts of America who have not even heard of sports vision neurocognitive training. Like, I have most of my athletes never heard of this.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of coaches, when I bring it up, there's skepticism, like, because they've never heard of this. Yet in places where you're around, you guys are already doing it. You guys have been doing it for how long now? Like almost a decade?
Yeah, so we've been, I would say, about 5 years, but there are some pretty kind of key people, and it's there's a handful, there's some people, a few hours from us, some of the major kind of cities like
I know it's
Toronto.
huge in hockey. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
sport vision has been done, and neurocognitive training has been done with hockey for, I mean, a very long time.
yeah,
Hockey and baseball, right? Would you say
yeah,
hockey
yeah.
and baseball? Yeah,
I would say, yeah, getting into football and things like that is kind of where it's most people have definitely not heard of it.
yeah,
But yeah, hockey and baseball are the ones, so, some of the guys that I've worked with, they did some stuff even 5-6 years ago, they were working with somebody
yeah.
already. And I'm that's crazy that you're in university and you were already kind of exposed to it, especially the goalies. It's mainly the goalies are the ones that are
Mhm.
they're goalies and baseball players are the ones that are ahead of the times on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they should be. I mean, those are
Yeah.
so visually demanding sports. I mean, like a baseball player, if you're not incorporating the vision training with your game, you're leaving a lot on the table. And that's
Oh
my
yeah.
personal and professional opinion, is the more I work with baseball and softball, like, you have to do vision drills. You
Yeah.
have to incorporate it. So step one, get tested, but then you can figure out what weaknesses and strengths you have. But I feel like every baseball and softball player should have a vision neuropriming drill before they head up on the plate. It just makes such a difference in being able to hit the ball. It's insane.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So I'm going to link all your info down below. So
Yeah.
if anyone wants to work with you or has questions for you, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, you know your stuff. Reach out to Travis or myself, because this field is so helpful when it comes to sport performance, that if you have questions and you don't know who to ask, you can shoot it our way and we'll answer
Yeah.
every single one. Anything else you would like to add? Anything that you feel would be helpful for the audience in terms of helping them reach that kind of that getting that next edge so they can level up?
No, I mean, I think kind of the whole thing with this podcast is just, see somebody who works with this kind of stuff, because if you're not, you're leaving just that opportunity to just take the next step on the table, regardless of if you're youth athlete, professional athlete. There's always room to get better, and this is one of those ways that a lot of people are not. So I think overall message is just start working with somebody.
And watch out for the flags. Watch out for the
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time, Travis. I seriously
Yeah, of
appreciate
course.
it. I know you had to fit us in a busy schedule, so thank you again.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I appreciate it. This was fun, and yeah, it was awesome.